Revealed that Prince Andrew hosted the late ex-offender Jeffrey Epstein as well as Ghislaine Maxwell and Harvey Weinstein at the Royal Lodge, the publicly owned home where he effectively lives rent-free after he paid for its renovation.
The shadows stretching across the manicured lawns of Windsor Great Park have never seemed quite so long, nor the silence surrounding the vast, stuccoed facade of Royal Lodge quite so deafening. For decades, this Grade 2 listed property served not merely as a residence, but as a fortress against reality, a sanctuary where Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, could operate by his own rules, insulated from the shifting tides of public opinion and moral accountability. However, the sanctity of this royal hideaway has been irrevocably shattered by revelations that are as grotesque as they are infuriating to the British public.
Well, the whole thing about Dutch and I is that we met when I was 16, she was 14. So we've known each other a very long time, and she had the quickest wit. That's what the thing. Anyway, I think you're referring to our hen night, are you?
Yeah. It is no longer just a story of a privileged prince clinging to a lease. It is a narrative of a house that harbored the very worst of high society predators. We now know that the guest list for this publicly owned residence, which Andrew has occupied effectively rent-free following his renovation investments, included not only the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and his conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, but also the convicted Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein. These figures, synonymous with abuse and exploitation, walked the same halls that were meant to represent the dignity of the crown. Today, however, the atmosphere inside those 30 rooms has shifted from one of arrogant exclusivity to one of paranoia, resentment, and a crumbling, Gothic dysfunction. As the inevitable eviction looms, bringing an end to Andrew's tenure at the lodge,
there are reports around how Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, of course formerly known as Prince Andrew, is spending his final days at Royal Lodge, and he's said to be ranting to himself.
The dynamic between the prince and his former wife, Sarah Ferguson, has disintegrated into open warfare. The happiest divorced couple in the world, a moniker they once wore as a shield against criticism, has been replaced by two frightened individuals trapped in a gilded cage that is slowly being dismantled around them. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, stripped of his HRH style, his military titles, and his public life, has reportedly issued a stunning and callous new directive to the staff that remains. He does not want Sarah anywhere near him. This demand marks a seismic shift in the strange, symbiotic ecosystem that has defined the York household for over 20 years. Reports emerging from the heart of the estate suggest that Sarah is not merely annoyed, but is feeling a profound sense of humiliation and fury. She is described by insiders as a woman unmoored, grappling with a sudden, icy rejection from the man whose chaotic life she has spent decades stabilizing. For Sarah, the rejection is a double-edged sword. It is a personal slight, certainly, but it is also a terrifying signal that the protection she has enjoyed under the umbrella of Andrew's stubborn refusal to change is evaporating.
Front page of the Sun newspaper, royal exclusive, Fergie time. Sarah Ferguson, formerly the Duchess of York, of course, is considering offers for a tell-all TV interview in the wake of her public downfall over links to sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. US channels.
She is reportedly lonely, confused, and increasingly isolated, wandering a house that feels less like a home and more like a mausoleum to a dead life. The context of this domestic breakdown is the broader, crushing weight of King Charles's decisive action. The monarch has formally severed the financial and ceremonial lifelines that kept Andrew afloat, effectively placing his younger brother into what is being termed internal exile. This is a punishment perhaps worse than banishment for a man defined by his status. It is a forced irrelevance. Andrew is expected to be relocated to a smaller, more manageable property on the king's private Sandringham estate in the new year, a move that signifies a permanent retreat from the center of power at Windsor. Facing this reality, Andrew's behavior has reportedly become erratic and volatile. Insiders describe a man consumed by his own grievance, prone to dark moods and solitary rants. He is said to be raging within the lodge,
Are said to be willing to pay six-figure sums to secure the chat with the former Duchess of York. It would evoke memories of her ex-husband Andrew Mountbatten's Windsor car crash Newsnight interview. A source told The Sun Andrew's had his chance to tell his story. Now it's Fergie's time. This could be a major headache for the king, couldn't it?
A fallen figure shouting at the encroaching silence, unable to process the total collapse of his world. Consequently, the layout of Royal Lodge has been redrawn along battle lines. The sprawling mansion has been divided into separate territories, with Andrew and Sarah living distinct, ghost-like existences in different wings of the house. They are physically close yet emotionally light years apart, their paths crossing only occasionally, perhaps during meals that are no longer occasions for shared strategy, but are instead fraught with tension, heavy silences, and the palpable fear of the future. Witnesses describe these encounters as intense and emotional, lacking the camaraderie that once confused the world. Sarah is reportedly in a state of high anxiety, panic rising as she contemplates her daughter's heritage, her own precarious living arrangements, and a financial future that looks increasingly bleak without the infrastructure of the Royal Lodge to support it. Andrew, conversely, has retreated into a shell of self-preservation, his tolerance for Sarah's chaotic energy entirely depleted as the consequences of his past choices finally breach the castle walls. The deterioration of Sarah's position is particularly poignant given how heavily she leaned on the structure of the royal household. In recent weeks, she has been observed retreating to her private quarters for the majority of the day, or seeking solace in the pub located within the estate grounds, a stark image of a duchess trying to find a semblance of normalcy. There are heartbreaking reports that she has begged staff members to stay past their shifts simply to avoid the crushing weight of being alone in the vast, emptying house. She is anxious, frightened, and deeply uncertain. For a woman who constructed her entire post-divorce identity around being the ultimate insider-outsider, the prospect of being truly outside is a terrifying new reality. To understand the magnitude of this collapse, one must dissect the anatomy of their relationship, a union that baffled observers for decades. They divorced in 1996, yet they never truly parted ways. They shared a roof, a routine, and a united front that withstood scandals that would have destroyed lesser alliances. But this was never a simple romance. It was a complex transaction of needs. For Sarah, the lodge was a physical manifestation of stability. It was a safe harbor that shielded her from her own financial mismanagement, from the relentless scrutiny of the British press, and from the consequences of a series of embarrassing business ventures. As long as she was under Andrew's roof, she was under the Crown's protection. However, indirectly, for Andrew, Sarah was equally essential, though for darker, more complex reasons. Why did he keep her so close, despite her debts, her toe-sucking scandals, and her propensity for selling access? The answer lies in the vault of secrets they share. Sarah Ferguson is perhaps the only person on Earth who knows the full, unvarnished truth of Prince Andrew's life. She was there during his tenure as a trade envoy. She witnessed the entourage, the favors, the parties, and the questionable associates. She knows the timeline of his life in a way no lawyer or PR strategist ever could. By keeping her inside the lodge, Andrew ensured her silence. It was a strategy of containment. If she was comfortable, she was loyal. If she was inside the tent, she wouldn't set fire to it. Furthermore, their relationship functioned as a mutual protection pact. Sarah provided the emotional cushioning Andrew desperately needed, offering unwavering support when the rest of the firm viewed him as a liability. She was his cheerleader, managing the domestic sphere and normalizing his existence. In return, he provided the status she craved. But it was also a matter of leverage. Sarah's knowledge of his private life, the who, where, and when, gave her a silent power over him. Conversely, Andrew's protection was the dam holding back the floodwaters of her financial reality. They were two people drowning, clutching each other to stay afloat, creating a bubble of denial inside Royal Lodge that outsiders could not penetrate. But that bubble has burst. The catalyst was the Epstein fallout, followed by the Virginia Giuffre settlement, and finally, the ascension of King Charles, who has no appetite for subsidizing his brother's delusion. With the loss of the prince, title, and the imminent loss of the house, the currency they traded between them has been devalued to zero. The fragile balance of their codependency has been shattered by the sledgehammer of reality. The united front has dissolved into resentment because the utility of the relationship is gone. Andrew can no longer protect Sarah. Sarah can no longer rehabilitate Andrew. This realization has led to one of the most bizarre and unexpected twists in this saga. Reports that both Andrew and Sarah are suddenly, and somewhat frantically, looking to date other people. Andrew has allegedly made comments about joining dating apps, a notion that would be comical if it weren't so indicative of his desperation to find a new distraction or perhaps a new source of validation. Sarah, too, is rumored to be exploring romantic avenues. This sudden pivot to romance is not merely a midlife crisis, it is a strategic decoupling. As the walls of Royal Lodge close in, the silent pact that bound them is dissolving.